Here we go.
Bop, 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 bop.
More bells.
Bong bong, bing bong.
I don't know where it doubles up.
We've heard these bells so many times now. The curtains opened. Their butterflies look more like moths. Whoa!
Welcome.
Where are we?
Pretty sure it's like where you fight the last boss in Kingdom Hearts. I don't know. We're in.
This is in a place that
This
we've
is
been
a
before.
magical realm because it says all the pieces of the board were gathered.
Okay. Whoa, look at your mouse. Oh, they
It's
can't
the
see it.
drift,
You've
it's
got
the
like mega drift on your mouse. It's possessed.
All of the humans, furniture, witches, and the witches on an even higher level had gathered in one place.
Oh, ooh.
That place was like a solemn cathedral, with an unbelievably high ceiling. White stonework, golden ornaments. Though there were windows, there were no entrances or exits. It was a strange, strange place.
And we got some funky, funky music.
But for some reason, no one wondered where this strange place was, because they were not given the right to think of this place as strange.
The pieces, have they all been gathered?
Yes, they have.
Well done. What a show. I wonder just how many people there are here.
No matter how many we see, every being outside of the 18 is a phantom.
Making you acknowledge them is what my game's all about.
3 witches were seated on special thrones set upon a very high balcony. In the center sat the Game Master, Lambda Delta, and on either side of the semicircular balcony sat Bern Costello and Beatrice facing each other. What's that remind you of?
Wasn't it supposed to be chess?
We're in a courtroom.
Ah.
Below them, Erica ran forward, lifted the corners of her skirt, and bowed respectfully. Great Lady Lambda Delta, we thank you for granting our request for an assembly. And great Lady Bern Castell, my master, please look forward to it. Though it may only be for a short while, I will most certainly make my master forget about all the poison that torments her. Yes, I am looking forward to it. I'd expect no less from my double. My peace. Erica and Bern Castell exchanged cruel smiles that would make anyone want to avert their gaze.
Listen up, witches and humans. I hereby announce that this assembly of witches gathered, the Court of Illusions, will now begin.
The commander of the game spoke with words of power. Though her words were spoken with such a vast space, they rang out with the force of a bell in a bell tower.
Maybe I should have gone deeper. Your lives and roles as they correspond to this game are over. The 5th game is now closed, and the 2400-hour answer session shall begin. Well, I'd like to get started quickly, but why don't we have everyone quickly introduce themselves first? After all, there are so many people here. I am Lambda Delta, the Witch of Certainty and the new commander of this game.
Bern Castell, a Witch of Miracles. My goal is to penetrate Beatrice's illusion of the witch.
I am the Endless Witch Beatrice. My goals are to claim my own existence and to protect Natsuki and Kinzo.
Battler Summer. You come next in rank. I'm Ishiremi, a battler. I'm fighting against Beatos. No, against the witches. That's all. As I believe you know, you joined in on this game partway through. At the time this assembly of witches opens, you have yet to participate. Do you understand? I get it. You probably mean I don't have the right to speak for a while, right? Thank you for understanding. Even though Battler held a rank near that of the witches, he sat on the foremost of the benches shared with the other relatives, all by himself at one end. He met the gaze of Beato, who was up on the balcony.
You might have said you were my arch enemy.
Well, you aren't necessarily my only enemy.
Let's take this game back. It belongs to us.
Yeah. I almost said I was fighting against Beato's illusion of the witch. Since the beginning, Beato has been my only enemy. But, right now, Erika and those witches who started toying around with Beato's tail are also my enemies. Who should I fight and how? Maybe it's a good thing I don't have the right to speak for a while. I'll calm down and coolly watch over everything.
I am the detective and the one who called for this assembly of witches, Furudo Erika. I will expose the culprit of the 5th game and stick a charming period at the end of this tale.
Erika greeted the witches above her and the humans behind her once again.
I'm also looking forward to it. Okay, remaining pieces, introduce yourselves in whatever order. Humans, introduce yourselves, all of you.
When 45 urged him to introduce himself, Kinzo stood up.
I'm Ushiromiya Kinzo. I slipped out of the study window and am hiding somewhere on Rakenjima.
Ushiromiya Kraus. Currently, I have been captured and am being confined somewhere.
I'm Ushiromiya Ava. I'm alive.
I am Rudolph. The rest of us are all Ushiromiyas too, so I'll leave off the family name.
I'm Rosa. I was killed on the First Twilight.
Jessica. I also died on the First Twilight.
I'm George. I also died on the First Twilight.
Maria. I died, but look, I'm here talking. See? Dying isn't a big deal, right?
I'm Ushiromiya Natsuki. I am alive. Gah!
Hideyoshi here. I was killed just a short while ago.
Kirie, I'm still alive. Nanjo, I am also hanging in there.
My name is Genji. I passed away on the First Twilight.
I'm Shannon. I'm still alive.
I'm Canon. I'm also alive. I'm Goda. Pleased to meet you, everyone.
I am Kumasawa. Pleased to meet you.
Now on to the witches. Everyone introduce yourselves.
Virgilia's group could also be seen. Unlike the floor Beato's group was on, the second floor had a balcony that looked like raised audience seating. And they sat there, looking down as though they were at a theater.
My name is Virgilia. I am Beatrice's teacher.
I'm Gab. Making corpses disappear is my job.
Ronave. I'm in charge of making black tea. Pukuku.
I greet you in the name of the 7 Sisters of Purgatory. I served in the murder of Hideyoshi on the Second Twilight. The 7 Sisters of Purgatory right here.
Let us then have Erika's furniture introduce themselves. Gertrude.
They're both the same voice.
I am an assistant inquisitor of heresy.
Cornelia. I am an assistant inquisitor of heresy.
The two of them could also be seen on the second floor audience seating. They sat apart from Virgilia's group. Then, Dylanor, who was seated between the two, slowly stood up. She had a presence and dignity about her, as though she was overseeing everything from that place.
Delano Anox is my name. I am Lady Erika's primary assistant. Battler, I expect much from you. Please don't disappoint me.
Let's just both give it all we've got.
Most of the time there will be no need for Dylanor to step forward. However, when the witches side plays around with ugly word games, I'll need to have Dylanov convict them. A miracle like the one in the study won't happen again. And finally, let us introduce ourselves. We are the Siesta Sisters Imperial Guards, who have been tasked with management of proceedings at this assembly of witches.
Hello, everyone.
This ends the introductions of all pieces. A total of 38 people are present here.
There are 38 characters in the 5th game, but if you added all the pieces from previous games too, it would probably rise even higher.
I know, all the goats.
This game, which has so often been likened to chess, now has far more pieces than a chessboard.
Very well. Then I guess we'll get started. Let's the person who called this meeting begin. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Goat. Refill my drink.
And some popcorn for me.
Yeah, that's right. The one who decided demons ought to eat popcorn when watching a play was you, after all.
Yes, I intend to enjoy this. And could I get some black tea and mustard miso? Erica, begin. I'm already starting to get bored. Yes, my master, leave it to me. Order! Silence!
At the sound of her voice, the Siesta Sister Corps straightened up, lifted their right knees and stamped down hard on the floor with their heels. It became a low, deep rumble in the ground, and all chatter in the cathedral disappeared instantly. As their eyes and expressions became even more hollow and empty, the room fell back into silence, almost as though they were a collection of wax models.
For some reason my brain went
Noodles?
wax noodles, yeah.
I read that too. Amidst this heavy silence, there was the sound of footsteps, as Erica walked out into the center, where she could catch everyone's attention. When she signaled with her chin, a goat attendant appeared from behind a pillar, and carried a single plain chair out into the front and center of the room. It must have been the defendant's chair.
I, Furuto Erica, will make an accusation. The murderer of the 5th game is...
Who? Who is it?
It's pretty clear.
Who? Nanje.
Ushiromiya Natsuki-san. You are the culprit.
Erica pointed at Natsuki and spoke. The Natsuki wax doll alone shook and regained its expression. It was an expression of panic.
Siesta Sisters, please take the defendant to her chair.
Understood.
Wait, what are you doing? Let go of me!
45 and 410 both pinned Natsuki's arms behind her back, and led her to the chair in the center. Natsuki resisted, but the Siesta Sisters were surprisingly strong, and she couldn't do anything. She turned to the relatives for help, but they just remained silent like wax models.
I, Furuto Erica, will now reconstruct why the crime was only possible for Ushiromiya Natsuki. Beato, of course you will be challenging this, right?
Naturally. I am the Ushiromiya family alchemist, Beatrice the Golden. Furuto Erica, I challenge you. I will take these false accusations you're trying to place on my master and tear them apart. With Beatrice. Fear not, Natsuki. You are my master, and you are the true head with the one-winged eagle engraved in your heart. Do not fear a crime you have not committed.
At those words, Natsuki jerked back and gulped. Her panic finally disappeared, and she stood up straight.
That's true. I am Ushiromiya Natsuki. I will confront any challenge that would disgrace the Ushiromiya family.
How can you try a bluff like that in a situation like this? You really are the bully kid in every single fragment.
So, Burn, make your claims.
I, Berncastel, claim that a human, Ushiromiya Natsuki, is the culprit of this game.
And you too, Beato, okay?
I, Beatrice, claim that the culprit of this game is not human. I am the culprit.
Berncastel, who smiled daringly, and Beatrice, who smiled firmly, crossed gazes.
Listen, witches and humans. 2 claims have appeared for a single truth. Is the culprit a human, Ushiromi and Natsuki? Is the culprit a witch, Beatrice? If the witch wins, the truth about the 5th game will disappear into darkness. If Erika wins, the illusion of the witch will be wiped from the game board. In other words, for Beato alone, this is a battle that must not be lost. Are you prepared?
And what am I supposed to be preparing myself for? This has always been just what I wanted.
If Erika wins, the illusion of the witch will be destroyed. That means the existence of the witch will be denied. Beato was fighting for her life. However, this wasn't the only time she had been fighting for her life. It had always been a life-or-death struggle, even when she fought with Battler. If Battler had won and destroyed the illusion of the witch in the previous games, Beato would have been destroyed. That's dirty. Erika alone has nothing to lose if she fails.
I wonder. Lady Berncastel is not a compassionate person. I can't imagine she'd give warm treatment to a piece that didn't perform to her expectations.
It was inconceivable that the ruthless Berncastel would place no blame at all on a piece who had suffered defeat. Erika was probably fighting for her life just as much. The 2 claims would clash, and one would be weeded out. One would fall, and would not leave this place alive. The only ones who truly had nothing to lose were those witches.
The struggle is kicking in.
Okay, no problems. Get started!
In that case, I would like to go first. The murder of Hideyoshi-san is very simple. It should be impossible to suspect anyone other than Natsuki-san. Except for the victim and Natsuki-san, all of us were in the same room, correct?
It really was simple. Except for Natsuki, everyone had been inside the parlor. And because it was so simple, it was decisive.
No matter how you look at it, the one who killed Hideyoshi was Natsuki. No, it's the other way around. No matter how you look at it, and no one except for Natsuki could have killed Hideyoshi. There's no room for discussion or debate.
I'm telling you, that's a mistake! Maybe I don't have an alibi. However, I don't believe a lack of an alibi proves that one is the culprit. We know that Natsuki is the only one without an alibi. But wait, the scene of the murder was a closed room. It should have been impossible for anyone, including Natsuki, to have committed the crime in that room. Except for me, since I could have done it with magic.
I'll explain the closed room trick, the how done it later. For the time being, I'll start with the who done it. Because of the aforementioned, it's impossible to suspect any character except Natsuki-san regarding the murder of Hideyoshi-san. Milady, it may be dangerous to press any further on this.
I agree. It's a fact that Natsuki was hiding in the closet of Hideyoshi's room. When it comes to repeating things in red, they'll check to see who's in the room, and you'll be cornered.
Probably. Lady Lambda Delta is the commander of this game. If it suits her fancy, she'll set up Natsuki as the culprit regardless of the facts.
If the typhoon passes and the police come to perform a scientific investigation, perhaps the true culprit will be identified, and the false accusations against Natsuki will be lifted. However, in this closed-off Rekenjima, the police will not arrive for all eternity. In other words, the real truth will not be revealed. Inside this cat box that will never be opened, false charges that everyone accepts are worth no more or less than the truth.
Really?
You want to stop? Stop.
No, keep going.
Their aim is most likely to use the simple murder of Hideyoshi to give the impression that Natsuki-sama is the culprit, before moving on to the First Twilight's reconstruction, which has more uncertain elements.
It's not good at all to move forward with the Game Master suspecting us. We should take the initiative.
Sure, Lady Lambda Delta. As you are well aware, a fair number of murders were committed during the 5th game, and we are skipping the rather lengthy chunk of time from midnight until the early morning. Skipping to Hideyoshi's murder and stepping backwards and forwards in time will only lead to confusion. It is my belief that we should follow events chronologically and in order, though the decision is yours, of course.
Objection. In the process of prosecuting the culprit, chronological order has no significance.
Objection. Fururo Erika is trying to mix up the chronological sequence in order to create a false impression of the events.
Well, I'm not a fan of confusing things myself. I accept Beato's claim. Erika, start with the first Twilight instead of jumping to the second.
I definitely saw Erica click her tongue. I understand. So this is a way of telling Rikenjima's tale. I was guided by Vigilia, met Beatrice, reached the peak from which you can see everything below you, and finally understood the truth of this world. This is that thing you were talking about earlier, Vigilia.
Yes, that's right. Truth is very fragile in this place.
As long as each side makes its own claim, different truths can exist at the same time.
Yes.
Yes, this really is a trial. Both sides put forth their own truths. This here truly is the Brawn Tube trial that Vigilia once used as an analogy.
Then I will follow Lady Lambda Delta's orders, and start with the first crime at the First Twilight. As you know, at midnight on October 4th, the first day, following a short break in the family conference, Natsuki left on her own, saying that she was going to bed early. Therefore, her alibi is completely lost from that time until the next morning.
Wow. Oh, is that so? I believe there are several people besides Natsuki who have dubious alibis. Unless you can clear suspicion from all of them, I cannot allow you to call Natsuki the culprit.
Whoa! Alright, the claim has been made that Natsuki was the only one lacking an alibi between midnight and 1 o'clock. This is being used as a basis for claiming that she is the culprit. However, as long as the following possibilities exist, it is impossible to conclude that this is the case. Was the crime also possible for Battler, who was in the guest house? Was the crime also possible for Nanjo, who was in the guest house? Was the crime also possible for Goda, who was in the guest house?
Kamisawa Genji Kraus.
I was happy reading. It's just like my pressing A tons of times in Monster Hunt. You're like, select all! Is it possible that there was a way to reach the second floor without passing through the lounge Erika was in? Is it possible that the crime was committed before midnight? Is it possible that the crime was committed after 3 a.m.? Is it possible that the crime was committed outside the time span of midnight to 1 a.m.? Or is it possible that someone in the mansion committed the crime between 12 o'clock and 3 a.m.? True. If Erika is going to call Natsuki suspicious so confidently, she's first got to show that everyone else has an alibi. Right, Bern?
Yes, of course. Erika will explain that perfectly. Of course, my master. In that case, I would like to explain things in order. Let's forget about Genji's murder for now and focus on the crime in the guest house. For this case, you'd like to suspect the servants who were in the guest house, right? On that night, Goda-san and Kumasawa-san were there. Isn't that right, you two?
When she turned to face the direction where those two were seated, those two wax models alone came back to life. They probably weren't even granted souls until they were allowed to speak. In that case, it would have been better if Natsuki's soul could have disappeared as well. Natsuki, who was in the defendant's chair, kept her soul the whole time and was constantly hanging her head, looking nervous. Goda hurried to his feet and answered Erika's question.
Yes, that is correct. On that evening, I alone was in the guest house servant room.
Well, look at my age. Staying up all night would be a heavy burden. So I returned to the waiting room in my guest house and went back to bed right away on my own. Oh, yes, yes. Doesn't that mean Godo and Kumasawa have lost their alibis? Kumasawa claims that she was sleeping alone in the waiting room. Godo claims he was alone in the servant room. Either of them should have had enough time to go to the cousin room and commit murder.
Nonsense! Why would we do something like that?
That's right. That's right. How could I ever kill someone?
Natsuki said it all. Both Kumasawa, who was sleeping alone in the waiting room, and Godo, who was alone in the servant room, are in the exact same situation as Natsuki in her room. Both of them have lost their alibis.
Have no fear. I guarantee that neither of those two are the murderers. First off, following dinner, Kumasawa-san left the mansion with me and the others and went to the guest house, entered the waiting room and slept until morning. It's the same for Goda-san. Once he finished with his job, he chatted with us in the lounge and went to sleep afterwards. Neither of them had the opportunity to commit murder.
So we're finally here. I see it's time for me to stand up as well. Your turn is already over, Erika. Go summon that bodyguard you rely on so much.
Beato glanced at where Dillinor sat on the second floor audience seating. However, Dillinor just stared back with those usual expressionless eyes.
Repeat it. We have absolute proof of Goda and Kumasawa's alibis.
We refuse. Why give a hint to an enemy? There's no way we'd answer.
Aha! Did you hear that, Lady Lambda Delta? They say they have no proof. How could they claim that Godo and Kumasawa have alibis without proof?
Good point. What do you say, Burn, Erika? How can you claim that Godo and Kumasawa have alibis?
Fall back, Erika. My opponent is Dillinor over there. A mere human like you can be no match for a witch.
No. There's no need for Dillinor to step forward. In fact, it's precisely because a mere human will defeat a witch that the illusion of the witch will now be denied. So go ahead. Use the red and blue as much as you like. I'm ready for it, okay? In response to Erika's challenge, Beato smiled boldly yet gracefully and slowly stood up. And they glared at each other between the floor and the balcony.
Godo and Kumasawa have no alibis. Whoa, that was a weird glitch. The two of them were in the guest house and could have reached the cousin room to commit murder at any time. Unless you can deny that possibility, you cannot treat Natsuki as the culprit.
You do remember what's going on, right?
There was a big logic battle.
No, that's what's starting.
Well, you said that there was too much logic for me to do while being asleep.
Yeah, so I'm asking if you remember what went on before that.
They're in court.
Hmm?
That it's like the final showdown of Erika.
There's a list of claims that Erika has to prove in order to prove that Natsuki is the culprit.
Yeah.
And so they're going to go through that now.
Yeah, and Beato's going to take the blame for everything.
Beato's blue truth struck out rapidly. The curtain had finally dropped and the battle had begun.
A human like Erika can't use any red. How could she turn this around without calling Dillinor?
Though Erika cannot use it, her master Lady Burncastel can. We mustn't let our guards down.
Blue truth valid. What'll you do, Burn? Will you or Dinalynor step in instead? It is still not my turn, and it is not Lady Burncastle's turn either.
Yes, that's right. There's no need for us to show up for something like this. This is important precisely because a mere human like Furudo Erika will defeat you, Beato. Because you'll be defeated by a human, we'll know. We'll all know something. We'll all know that the fake witch who calls herself Beatrice the Golden is nothing more than a subhuman phantom.
If you really could do that, it'd be totally entertaining. Very well, Erika. Let's see what you've got.
Explaining it for the first person, Kumasawa-san, is extremely simple. Kumasawa-san, stand.
Oh, yes.
Kumasawa-san, from the time you went to bed last night to the time you were informed about the crime in the morning, did you ever leave the waiting room?
No, I was sound asleep until morning. I really was.
The truth is, after dinner last night, I had a chat with Ava-san, and she told me something very interesting. I tried that out myself.
And what exactly is that? You don't mean...
That's right. It's what cornered and sealed Kinzo in his study. I learned that you can create a seal by putting something in between a door and the frame. Are you kidding? Did she actually do that to Kumasawa-san's waiting room?
Erika was in the guest house, so there's no obstacle to have her having been capable of that.
After all, it was an unsettling night, and a massive amount of gold had just been discovered. Many sorts of crimes might have occurred. Where there is a detective, there will be a crime. I foresaw that some kind of crime would take place, so I used this to seal away people whose alibis might otherwise be lost. Erika held a small folded piece of brown paper high in the air. After I watched Kumasawa-san, who returned to the guest house with me, say goodnight and enter the waiting room, I used this to seal the door. Then, in the morning, when the crime was discovered and caused a big uproar, I immediately went to check Kumasawa-san's waiting room, where I confirmed that the seal was still set. Therefore, I can prove Kumasawa-san's alibi.
Oh my goodness.
Doesn't go.
Oh, it was the same one. Okay, so we're actually going to go through each of the points.
Next is Koro, I think. Good. A wonderful alibi. Not a single gap. Kumasawa returned to the guest house with Erika, went to the waiting room to sleep, and never left the room until the morning. In other words, after Kumasawa returned to the guest house, she never went to the second floor until morning. The proof Erika had shown was elevated by Burncastel and became red truth. This truth, which had become red, could no longer be overturned, even by Beato. In other words, in that instant, Kumasawa's perfect alibi had been absolutely guaranteed.
Oh, then what about Goda?
Goda-san holed up in the servant room right after reaching the guest house. I sealed him up in the same way. Then, when Rosa-san returned at 1 a.m., I happened to notice her when I stepped out into the corridor. I let Goda-san, who was still in the servant room, know this. At that moment, the seal was still in place, so from the time we arrived at the guest house until 1 a.m., Goda-san never left the servant room. And afterwards, he was with me in the lounge until 3 a.m. And after 3 a.m., I was on the second floor, so I can guarantee that Goda-san didn't come up to the second floor. Erika's seal proves that Goda was holed up in the servant room until 1 a.m. And Erika has proven his alibi from then until 3 a.m., since she was passing the time in the lounge with him. And Erika has also proven that he never set foot on the second floor until the morning after. In other words, after Goda returned to the guest house, he never went up to the second floor until morning. Koro has an alibi.
Can the points that have been blacked out be undone?
I don't know.
Red truth valid. Well done, Erica. The alibi due to your seal on that door has been acknowledged by Byrne and elevated to the status of red truth.
Thank you very much, my master. I am the detective. I may be a human, but I can use the red truth despite that and surpass humans.
So now you claim to have surpassed humans. It's 1,000 years too early for you to talk like that, conceited brat.
It'll be a pain to have you try anything funny, so I'll make this clear now. In fact, I should have done this in the beginning. I apologize for being so roundabout. This is the situation around the guest house at midnight. The gold was found, an emergency family meeting was called for, and Battler-san went to the mansion with the relatives. I, the 3 cousins, Dr. Nanjo, Goda-san, and Kumasawa-san, remained in the guest house. I have already explained Goda-san and Kumasawa-san's alibis. George-san, Jessica-san, and Maria-san were playing cards in the cousin room. I actually joined them for just a little bit, and I clearly witnessed that they were all alive at that time. My master, I ask that you repeat this. Yes, I'll respond. At midnight in the guest house, George, Jessica, and Maria were alive, and in the second floor cousin room, Nanjo, Goda, and Kumasawa were on the first floor. And, since there's no need to hold off on it anymore, I'll confirm that all the victims so far are dead. George, Jessica, Maria, Rosa, and Genji really are dead. How could they be playing dead with their necks sliced open like that?
No murder occurred before midnight. We guarantee that George's group is dead.
Thanks for repeating that, my master. If we hadn't made these things clear, you might have started going on about how they were already dead before I guaranteed everyone's alibis, or that they weren't actually dead at all.
Gah!
Unsurprisingly, Beato's side couldn't get away with the simple plan of claiming that the victims were only playing dead. But in order to overcome Goda and Kumasawa's alibis, it should have been possible to suppose that the crime occurred before those doors were sealed. However, the opponent had predicted this move perfectly. It had been shown in red that the crime did not occur before the time period covered by Erica's alibis.
Got it. That's the last time the victims were confirmed to be alive. I wish you'd said that in the beginning. This means we can ignore everything that happened before midnight.
To go even further, at midnight, Natsuki, Kraus, and Genji were in a corridor on the second floor of the mansion. All the remaining people were at the family conference in the dining hall. Of course, at that point in time, no murder had occurred. Genji was also alive.
We confirm that those thought to be inside the mansion at midnight were indeed inside the mansion. Addendum is gone.
There's something about Natsuki not being confirmed.
This isn't something Erica observed, but we can't move the game forward without settling it. Very well, I'll acknowledge that red truth.
Thank you very much for that red truth, my master.
Since Erica had been in the guest house, it was only natural that she could explain the situation there. However, since she hadn't been in the mansion at the time, explaining the situation over there would have been extremely difficult for her. Beato would normally have attacked there with the blue truth, saying that the people in the dining hall had all agreed to keep to the same story, that someone had snuck out of the dining hall and that they might have committed murder in the guest house. However, because Byrne had instantly settled that matter with the red text, Beato had completely lost her chance to strike back.
Damn it.
Very troublesome. To think we would be put at such a disadvantage.
This is almost exact opposite of Richie's fights with Butler.
In fact, the situation might be even worse than it was back then.
At a glance, the fight between the two of them resembled our previous fights. However, there were some vital differences. The first was whether or not Beato was the Game Master. The Beato who fought against me was the Game Master, so she knew all the truth. That's why she was able to use the red text at will. However, the current Beato isn't the Game Master. She's just a single piece on the game board. In other words, even Beato doesn't know the truth. So you could say that Beato is now in the same position I was. Also, though Erika may seem to be in the same position I once was, the situation for her is totally different. She's connected to the witch called Bernkastel. Even though she isn't the Game Master, she's capable of elevating Erika's statements to become Red Truth. Because of this, Erika can use the Red Truth, even though she's neither a witch nor the Game Master. Beato, who's supposed to be the witch, possesses no truth nor red she can use. And yet, the detective, Erika, can use the Red Truth. The advantage has been completely flipped over to the other side. Perhaps you could say that the current Beato is in a much worse position than I was when I fought with her. After I got used to the game, Beato stopped responding to my demands that she use the red. But in the beginning, she had responded to almost all of them, giving me quite a few hints. That's why we were able to fight on par. However, Bernkastel is different. She fully understands the rules of this game and is prepared to corner Beato without even a hint of restraint. And because of this, I knew. In the past, Beato went easy on me, so that we could fight on par with each other.
This has become quite an amusing fight. I see, so I must fight from the position Butler once stood in.
Beato.
In the past I've insulted you and called you incompetent. Oh, but I can't read that quickly. I can handle much, much worse than this.
It's now impossible to suspect Godo and Kumasawa. You can't win by arguing that point any longer.
Yes, let's switch to a different approach.
The next in line would probably be Nanjo. He was also in the guest house.
Nanjo was in the lounge with Erika. However, I believe the time periods before and after that have been left open.
That's right, I'll strike there. Nanjo, you were relaxing in the first floor lounge of the guest house with Erika and Gerda, correct?
Was the crime also possible for Nanjo, who was in the guest house?
Yes, it was possible. No. Yes, I was with Erika-san the whole time. And during what time was this? From 1 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Yes, that's right. It was the period between 1 and 3. Dr. Nanjo, Goda-san, and I were relaxing in the lounge. Repeat it, my master. I'll respond. From 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., Erika, Nanjo, and Goda spent their time in the lounge on the first floor of the guest house.
Though she had flat out refused to repeat what Beato told her to, she responded to Erika's demand immediately. The Red Truth was starting to corner Beato. She grimaced as though in pain, but she still struck back with the Blue Truth. No, perhaps she really was in pain. Now that the characters, apart from Natsuki, have had their alibis established, the illusion of the witch is also being denied. Beato perceived the denial of her existence as pain.
Even so, he shouldn't have an alibi for the time period before and after you were in the lounge. It was possible for Nanjo to commit the crime too.
That's right. I get that Nanjo was in the lounge with Erika from 1 to 3 a.m. But what about before and after that? What about that, Erika?
Yes. First, the alibi before 1 a.m. This is no problem at all. I played cards with the cousins in their room until midnight, and then went downstairs to the lounge, where I met Dr. Nanjo.
That's right. At midnight, I met Erika-san after she came down the stairs and spoke with her, learning that she was quite the connoisseur of the mystery genre. I realized that I'd found a kindred spirit.
When I went in... Oh my goodness. When I went into the library to solve the epitaph's riddle, I noticed that there were several original copies of famous foreign mystery novels stored there. So, I wanted to discuss them with the actual books in hand. We moved to the library and were talking the whole time. Constantly, until we moved to the lounge.
Cramped though it was, that book storage room in the guest house was stocked well enough that it was fair to call it a small library. In it were several famous foreign mystery novels that Kinzo had once taken a liking to. Of course, they were all originals and in English, but English was no problem for either Erika or Nanjo. For this occasion, they had borrowed the key to the library one more time from Goda in the servant room. At that point, Erika checked the seal again, and of course, reset it. Damn her. Even though she keeps it sealed for anyone else to enter or leave, she alone enters and leaves whenever she wants.
I see. So from midnight until 3 a.m., you went to sleep. You went to sleep. You were with Nanjo the whole time? Hang on, let me read that again. That doesn't make it. I see. So from midnight until 3 a.m., when you went to sleep, you were with Nanjo the whole time. That means Nanjo's alibi is the most rock solid of them all.
Yes, that's it exactly. My master, repeat it.
Is she like a parrot?
I'll respond. After midnight, Erika was with Nanjo the whole time until 3 a.m.
At midnight, the crime in the cousin room still hadn't occurred, so this way an alibi had been established for the period before the time they were in the lounge.
After that, we walked out of the library and into the hallway at 1 a.m. When we did, we just happened to bump into Rosa-san as she returned. I then told Goda-san about that. I figured it was probably a servant's responsibility to welcome in a guest.
Goda asked if he should bring a towel, but Rosa refused. She quickly headed up to the second floor. At this point, Erika, Goda, and Nanjo gathered together and decided to have a drink. Their alibis in the lounge up until 3 a.m. have already been proclaimed in red, so there are no problems there.
Let's continue on to after 3 a.m. This is Dr. Nanjo's alibi after we're split up.
The glass breaking, does that mean we've got a tip or something?
No. That just sounds fair.
At 3 a.m., Battler-san returned and the people in the lounge went their separate ways. Dr. Nanjo, Battler-san, and I went up to the second floor. I then said goodnight to Dr. Nanjo. At this time, of course, I put a seal on the door to Dr. Nanjo's room as well. And it went unchanged until the crime was discovered. I flew out of my room at the same time as Battler-san's scream, and checked to see that the door to Dr. Nanjo's room was still sealed.
I just don't understand how you can, go around to everybody's room so quickly to check that type of
Detective's
stuff.
privilege.
Ugh.
Therefore, Dr. Nanjo's alibi is perfect both before 1 and after 3.
Nanjo has an alibi.
Well, she's in the guest house, and all the rooms are, on the second floor.
It just means, instead of going to the scene of the crime, she's running around looking at everybody's doors and seeing if there's a slip of paper in there.
Yeah, she wants to make
What
sure
if
she's
someone
right.
put it back?
Splendid, Erika. Both your seal and your red truth are perfect. Nanjo had the alibi of being with Erika until 3 a.m. And he didn't leave his room until... he didn't leave his room after 3 a.m. until morning.
Erika made use of the seals on the doors, and was granted red truths from Berncastel one after another. For me, demanding that Beata repeat something had been about maneuvering and tactics, but it's totally different for Erika. For her, it's like having a trump card that can make red whenever she wants.
This concludes the proof of alibis for all suspects in the guest house. Any problems?
I do have a problem, and that problem is,
Beata racked her brains to find some point to latch onto, but Erika's red had been ruthlessly perfect. There was no point she could take issue with. Beata kept thinking hard, trying to fault Erika on something, but her expression was so wrought with desperation that anyone could tell by looking.
Beata's complaint is rejected. I can't sense any problems at all. It's totally cute and perfect. Alibis for all humans in the guest house have now been proven.
Wait a sec, Erika. Are you trying to leave me out of this? Ishiromiya Butler also should have had a chance to commit the crime. After all, I was in the same room as the victims all night. I'm not gonna let you skip past this part while ignoring me. At that time, an arrow twisted like a golden snake and hit me. It didn't pierce through me, but it slapped me hard on the cheek like a whip. Battler-sama, your right to speak has not yet been recognized. Be warned. Ah, damn it.
Yeah, I understand, Battler. And my apologies. Forgive me. Erika, you still haven't shown an alibi for Battler. Battler is the man who was sleeping alongside the victims. Shouldn't he be placed under suspicion more than anyone else? Was the crime also possible for Battler, who was in the guest house?
Beatu's right. You can't go skipping Battler like that.
My apologies. I had completely forgotten.
After Battler returned at 3 a.m., you went up to the second floor with him. And I believe you also went to your own room and slept. You may have gone to the cousin room at midnight, but I don't think you went there after 3 a.m. Will you now claim that you went to crawl into Battler's bed later on? Well, if you were saying you were looking at Battler's sleeping face all night long to confirm his alibi in the cousin room, then I'd accept it, right?
Yes, I listened to him breathing in his sleep all night long. Got a problem with that?
What?
I, Furudo Erika, can prove that Battler-san returned to the cousin room at 3 a.m., that he went straight to bed afterwards, and that he went straight to sleep. And I can prove that until he woke up, he noticed the gruesome situation the room was in and let out a scream. Nothing happened in that room. So, you have no need to worry. Battler-san isn't the culprit. He's just the charming first discoverer who entered the murder scene without realizing it was one and slept until morning.
That's insane. It shouldn't be possible for you to prove that with those seals you love so much. How can you prove this?
That's ridiculous. At that time, I entered the room alone. Erika probably went into her room too. How can she say something like that, as though she saw the whole thing?
She never said that she saw it. The room Erika was assigned to, where was it located?
Erika, please tell me. How can you prove so much about Battler?
I'd expect no less from a true detective. My room was right next to the cousin room. There was only a single thin wall between them.
You don't mean you put your ear against the wall to check what was happening in the cousin room?
Yes, my ears are perfect. Right after Battler-san entered the room, I put my ear against the wall and checked to make sure nothing strange happened.
Shouldn't she have heard what happened?
Well, that's the thing. She didn't hear anything.
You said you could prove that nothing happened until Battler let out a scream the next morning. You don't mean...
Yes. I put my ear against the wall and listened in on that room until morning, without sleeping a wink.
Everyone was stunned into silence. She put her ear against the wall, and for the entire time until morning, she listened to what was going on in Battler's room. Just what would that have looked like? Until dawn, she had killed her breathing in a pitch-black room, clinging to the wall shared with the cousin room, like some kind of creepy, venomous spider clinging to the wall of a darkened room. Bern Castell alone was grinning in triumph.
Due to the progression of the game, I realized that Battler, the one who had received the head's ring, would be a key player. I was sure that Battler would be a victim of the First Twilight. Yes, so, just as my master told me to do, I put my ear against the wall until morning without a wink of sleep, checking to make sure nothing unusual happened.
Erika has a photographic memory, and her hearing ability is on par with a tape recorder.
It would have been impossible for him to deceive Erika's ears, either to kill George and the others or make those wounds on their throats.
It was impossible for Battler to commit the crime.
So we've got Genji, Kraus, Natsuki. It's an acceptable power of the detective's authority. I have no choice but to acknowledge it. I'll confirm it in red. Ushiromiya Butler returned to the cousin room at 3 a.m. and fell asleep. After that, until the discovery of the crime, absolutely nothing out of the ordinary happened in the room. In other words, it was possible for Butler to commit murder or damage the corpses. Supreme.
You're one. The red from the pair forced Beato to show an expression of considerable anguish. It was only natural. Those red truths not only guaranteed Battler's alibi, but a number of other things as well. First off, it meant the murder was impossible for anyone after 3 a.m. And since the cousins were confirmed to be alive as late as midnight, the time period of the crime automatically became between midnight and 3 a.m. That meant the alibis for all people who weren't in the guest house before 3 a.m. had also been guaranteed automatically.
It is impossible for the crime to have occurred after 3 a.m. So we've got 3 culprits then. Kraus, Natsuki, and Genji. And Genji's dead.
He was alive at that point. That's what they said.
That one hurts a lot.
After midnight, Erika was in the guest house the whole time. So, it should have been difficult for her to prove alibis for all the people in the mansion.
It should have been almost impossible to prove alibis for Ava and the others. But now all she has to do is prove that they never visited the guest house between midnight and 3. And she can prove those alibis.
Anyway, we'll have to construct it so that the murders were possible before 3 a.m. And we have to prove that it was possible for one of the people in the mansion to do it.
The people who had been in the guest house all had alibis. The crime didn't occur before midnight. The crime couldn't have occurred after 3. In other words, there was no way for the murders to happen unless someone from the mansion committed the crime between midnight and 3.
It is possible that someone in the mansion committed the crime between midnight and 3 a.m. Is it? Is it possible?
In order to protect Natsuki, she had to establish that it was possible for someone other than Natsuki to commit the crime. Ironically, the witch had to prove that a human had committed the crime. Still, this is getting pretty difficult. Until 3, Erika was in the lounge, and you have to pass through there to reach the 2nd floor. In other words, she's practically like a manager for the guest house's 2nd floor.
This tactic may be a bit overused, but if it was possible for someone to go up to the 2nd floor without Erika noticing, we should be able to prove that the crime was possible for anyone.
It's probably possible for a human to climb up to a 2nd-story window if they were really wanted to.
Could there possibly be a way to reach the 2nd floor without passing through the lounge Erika was in?
Of course, Beato had also thought of striking back that way, and Bernkastel must have thought this as well.
Butler, Nanjo, Goda, Kumasawa. We realized that the crime was impossible for all these people in the guest house. However, what about the humans in the mansion?
As I have already said, and as my master has even proclaimed with the red truth, I was in the lounge on the 1st floor of the guest house, and to reach the 2nd floor, one must pass through the lounge. In other words, it was impossible to reach the 2nd floor without me seeing it.
And what if that wasn't impossible? For example, what if someone placed a ladder against the outer wall of the guest house and snuck in through a 2nd-story window? There must have been a way to reach the 2nd floor lounge without passing through. There must have been a way to reach the 2nd floor without passing through the lounge. That way, it would be possible to reach the crime scene without you seeing it.
Beato finally struck back. Before now, she had let Erika take total control and attack her with the red over and over. During that time, Beato's counterattacks with the blue truth had been few in number, even including this one.
Of course, I knew you'd try saying that. I couldn't have my lookout in the lounge become meaningless. So first, I must prove that my lookout was perfect. First off, because of how the guest house is constructed, it's impossible to reach the second floor without me seeing it from the lounge. There are no places under cover, nor are there any physical or mental blind spots. My master, repeat it! It is impossible for someone to reach the second floor of the guest house without anyone in the lounge noticing. Though, of course, something. This only refers to reaching the second floor from the inside of the building. Good, my master. So, next is Lady Beatrice's theory that there might be a way to reach the second floor from the outside. This really is a problem. After all, there are trees that could possibly be climbed, and someone could have used a ladder. Even crawling up the rain gutter can't be ruled out as impossible. But I can't let you do that.
Oh, you won't let me. And how's that? Did you stay up all night circling the guest house? No, you couldn't do that. You were in the lounge. From the lounge, you can only see a small part of the outer perimeter through the window.
That's true. I couldn't prevent all methods of climbing up to the second floor from the outside. However, I was able to prevent all entry to the second floor.
Prevent entry?
I had already foreseen this move. How terrifying that she would be so persistent. Because of how the guest house is constructed, the windows are the only method of entry from the outside of the second floor. The locks, not important at all. I only had to prove that none of the windows or shutters were opened even once. After I witnessed the location of the hidden gold, I returned to the guest house and immediately began severing all methods of entry to the second floor of the guest house that didn't pass through the lounge. Yes, it's exactly the same. No different from the rest.
Don't tell me you used that seal of yours on all the windows of the guest house? In that weather? Dressed like that?
Well, I did have my swimsuit from when I drifted here.
That's just a really weird image.
You're insane. At a house where you were welcomed as a guest? You did something like that in the middle of the rain, even though nothing had happened yet?
For a normal human, it would have been an action so suspicious as to be completely impossible. However, she is the witch's piece.
In the middle of all that rain, Erica sealed all the windows from the outside
While wearing her swimsuit.
to create an alibi showing that no one could have snuck into the guest house from the outside. She climbed up the wall herself and did that to all the windows on the first and second floor. No, to all things that could possibly have permitted entry. Although, after hearing that she'd listened to the cousin room all night long, without even sleeping a wink, this new bizarre action didn't seem quite so impossible.
Why is she able to do all that and then have so much trouble thinking that Battler could exit out a window? She was like, how? It's not possible. No, it can't be.
Well, it said that, I forgot her name, but the other one, the blue girl, she could have...
Cordelia?
Yeah, she could have rebutted, but, I think William Doe got in the way and stopped her. So it's like, they did have an argument against it, but they just weren't allowed to use it because of the Game Master. This would probably also look like a venomous spider. A disgusting spider crawling all over the outside guest house wall during a storm.
See, I'm not getting how this is your favourite character when this story doesn't even seem to,
How
like,
you...
present her in a nice way. They're like,
you should
disgusting,
see why I like
spider.
this character now.
You, just what do you think of this Ushiromiya family? Is this how you repay us for welcoming you as a guest?
To a detective, the Ushiromiya family is nothing more or less than the stage upon which the crime occurs. Before the outbreak of the crime, it was important for me to memorize the names of the characters, memorize the layout of the land, and prepare for the upcoming crime by devoting my time towards collecting and creating all possible alibis. From my perspective, detectives who don't prepare anything before the outbreak of the crime are pretty third-rate. After all, we all know that someone will die wherever we spend the night. Furthermore, at the time the crime was discovered, Erica confirmed that none of the seals had been broken. That's why Erica wasn't the first one to reach the cousin room when the corpses were found. Even without inspecting the corpses, she could be certain of several things thanks to the Red Truth. It was more important to check the seals and construct alibis.
My master is perfect. All I did was prove everything perfectly by following master's orders.
Well done, Erica. My double, my piece. What do you think, Lambda? Doesn't this prove that Erica's lookout in the lounge contains absolute reliability as far as constructing alibis?
There is no way to reach the second floor without passing through the lounge. Yeah, I acknowledge it. Erica, your seal is perfect. I'll acknowledge it in red. It was impossible to reach the second floor of the guest house without passing through the lounge, and impossible to reach it at all without Erica, who was in the lounge, knowing about it.
Thank you very much, Lady Lambda Delta. So, you know what's coming next, great Lady Beatrice? Therefore, the time of the crime is limited to the single hour between midnight, when they were confirmed to be alive, and 1 a.m., when our party in the lounge started. I've already said it, but at midnight I went down to the lounge, hit it off with Dr. Nanja, and was engrossed by a discussion of the mystery genre in the library until 1 a.m. It's a bit embarrassing, but I grew so wrapped up in that discussion that I wouldn't have noticed if anyone had passed through the corridor during that period. Quite a regretful mistake for a detective.
After doing all that maneuvering and setting up seals to guarantee a perfect alibi, she became too engrossed in a mystery discussion and left an opening. Her relaxed smile was completely shameless, the total opposite of her words. It almost seems like it's the other way around. It's enough to make you think that this was an intentional trap. To make it clear to all that only Natsuki didn't have an alibi between midnight and 1 a.m.
In other words, it paradoxically means this. The only ones who could have reached the cousin room and committed the crime are those characters who have no alibi between midnight and 1.
Her eyes clearly hinted that Natsuki was the only one who fit this description.
It is only possible for the crime to have occurred between midnight and 1 a.m.
1 p.m. broadens it a bit more. It should have been a crime whose time and location were completely unknown during that long night, but because of the alibis Erica had constructed, it had been limited to the time period between midnight and 1. Erica left the cousin room at midnight. That makes the last confirmation that George and the others were alive. After the party in the lounge started at 1, it was impossible to reach the cousin room by any method.
Damn, I went from a mere human.
This is quite bad. The night has been sealed up in an hour, and at this rate there won't be many suspect pieces left.
Damn it, Lady Burncastle. Nicely done.
Unlike Battler, I'm not an idiot. After watching this game 5 times, I've got more than enough cards in my hand.
Then, let us continue. Let's examine the alibis of the remaining suspects, the people in the mansion. After all, we only have to worry about the single hour between midnight and 1. That shouldn't be difficult at all. Let's start with midnight. At this time, Natsuki, Kraus, and Genji are in the second floor corridor, and all of the others are in the first floor dining hall. This has already been shown by my master's red.
Yeah, that's right. At midnight, Natsuki, Kraus, and Genji were in the corridor on the second floor of the mansion. The rest of them were in the dining hall on the first floor. And as you know, there was a mysterious knock, and a letter with the one-wing seal on it appeared. The discussion surrounding that continued on until 1. I will say it with the red truth. Of all the people in the dining hall, not one of them left the dining hall until 1 a.m.
Excluding Natsuki, Kraus, and Genji, none of the people in the mansion left the mansion before 1 a.m.
Three suspects. Since the possible times for the crime had been limited to between midnight and 1, the adults in the family conference, who were confirmed not to have left the mansion between midnight and 1, all had proven alibis.
And how do you intend to prove that? Erica's in the guest house. Did someone prove it by using one of your favorite seals on the dining hall door? You have no convincing evidence or proof.
The red truth is simply truth, and there is no need to provide evidence, proof, or room for a counter-argument. You made that rule.
This overbearing red truth hadn't only given alibis to the adults in the dining hall, it also gave alibis to Shannon and Cannon, who had come to serve tea, and even guaranteed that they never left the dining hall. In other words, the only ones who didn't have proven alibis were these three, Natsuki, Kraus, and Genji. No, there were only 2 left. If Kraus and Genji had their alibis proven, it proves that no one but Natsuki could have been the culprit.
Let's do Genji next. He's a victim, but you can't deny the possibility that he committed the crime in the cousin room and was then killed himself. And furthermore, though he was in the second floor corridor at midnight, he then returned to the servant room to transfer the phone call for Natsuki and was completely isolated.
Was the crime also possible for Genji, who was in the mansion? Which means it was possible for Genji to commit the...
I'll say it in red. When Genji finished transferring the call, he immediately returned to the waiting room. That's just a cold, hard truth, without any evidence, proof, seals, or alibis. Got it?
Are we still talking about the murders on the first Twilight or the second? We haven't got to the second Twilight.
The first, yeah.
Okay.
Then, at 1 a.m., there was another break in the family conference, and Rosa returned to the guest house. At that time, I'm truly thankful for your cooperation, Ushiremiya Eva-san. Please rise.
Erika-chan wasn't the only one, okay? I was also certain that something could happen that night.
She's the person who taught me how to make those seals. And she helped me to check the alibis of those people under suspicion.
During the break at 1 a.m., I went to Genji-san's waiting room and used the same seal as Erika-chan. In other words, if that wasn't broken, it would mean no one entered or left that room between 1 a.m. and the next morning. The murder of Genji is also limited to the span between midnight and 1 a.m.
Now, Kanon-san and Kumasawa-san, please rise.
Cannon rose expressionlessly, and Kumasawa got to her feet timidly.
In the morning, you two went to wake Genji-san because he had slept in, right? And at that time, you noticed that the door was sealed, broke the seal and opened the door, correct?
Yes. I thought it was some kind of prank.
I didn't think deeply about it at the time.
I'm not asking for your opinions, just give us the facts. Did you break the seal and enter the room?
Yes.
With the red truth, I'll guarantee that Ava, Cannon, and Kumasawa's statements just now are the truth. At 1 a.m., Ava sealed Genji's waiting room, and that seal was broken by Cannon and Kumasawa in the morning when the crime was discovered. This'll be a pain, so I'll add some more. During the short break at 1 a.m., the first two to leave the dining hall were Rosa and Ava. Until Ava returned, everyone in the dining hall remained there. After seeing Rosa off, Ava went to the waiting room and sealed it. Of course, she did not enter the room at all at this time. This is all information gathered from the people involved. It isn't a red truth without a basis. It's truth due to a proper reasoning constructed from testimony. Not only testimony, but the limits of scientific investigation, such as collecting fingerprints, were used here. After all, Kinzo-san's study is a treasure vault with all kinds of chemicals. I obtained all sorts of results to create an ultimate truth, infinitely close to a red truth. This isn't a science mystery, so I'll spare you the details. As Erika swaggered around the cathedral, she arrogantly touted her scientific knowledge. She had thorough knowledge of all the chemicals in Kinzo's study, and had used them to conduct a scientific investigation, which had now been acknowledged and made into a red truth by Bernkastel. She didn't explain the details, but she had obtained results that were convincing even without the red. Collecting fingerprints with aluminum powder, component analysis of the mud under someone's shoe, and various chemical reactions from the clinging rainwater. Erika just walked into someone else's study several times, and used several chemicals however she pleased, all without asking the family's permission. However, no one could fault her for this. The pieces couldn't hinder any action the detective might take for the investigation. That's the power of the detective's authority.
You act like you own the place. From now on, I'll tell everyone I meet if someone claims to be a detective, never welcome them into your house as a guest.
That's probably a good idea. Giving shelter to a detective is just about the worst omen of misfortune out there. Because of this, it has been proven that it was only possible to reach Genji's waiting room and commit the crime between midnight and 1 a.m. And furthermore, by Erika's investigation, it has been proven that it was impossible for Genji to reach the cousin room. It had already been made clear in red that, after transferring the phone call to Natsuki, Genji had gone straight back to the waiting room, and because of Erika's scientific investigation, further red had been added, saying Genji never left the mansion after midnight. Because of this, it's been made clear that Genji couldn't have reached the guest house, much less the cousin room.
Genji has an alibi.
He's dead.
Now only Kraus and Natsuki remain. Everyone else who has had their alibis proven, haven't they?
Impossible!
Natsuki's mouth flapped open and shut like a suffocating goldfish. And that's an accurate analogy. Natsuki's mind was blank and spinning out of control, and she felt as though she really would suffocate.
Ushiromi and Natsuki, I'll give you one last chance. Confess that all of the crimes were the work of your husband.
Fool! Do I look like the kind of woman who would falsely accuse her husband?
Beato, Natsuki's denied it. I'll give you the same chance. You understand, right? Oh wait, don't tell me. You aren't going to take advantage of the fact that Kraus is missing to try and pull a devil's proof on me, are you?
Was the crime also possible for Kraus, who was in the mansion?
Oh!
Beato realized that they were rapidly approaching the end of this battle. Normally Beato should have been able to argue against these alibis of Erika's in several ways using the blue truth. However, all of those alibis had been accepted by Bernkastel and Lambda Delta as red truth, and Beato no longer had any room to argue. It's like those witches distorting things so that they match with the plotline Erika's drawn up.
That's right. If the game master, Lady Lambda Delta, accepts the truth, its authenticity will not be questioned. The world that comes after will be formed based on the final remaining truth. This happens no matter how far this final truth is from the real truth.
There's no way Uncle Kraus is the culprit. He's being held prisoner somewhere. Wait, we can't deny the possibility that Aunt Natsuki was skillfully tricked into believing that junk, the phone call.
Do you suspect Natsuki and Kraus, Butler-kun?
Well,
Erika's truth has been constructed in a cowardly fashion, but it is a proper truth. Though the witches did conspire with her, it has still been acknowledged as a red truth. In other words, it cannot be a fake truth built solely on lies. This means that even Erika's truth is supported by logic. The truth about Natsuki and Kraus being culprits is also very possible. Even if it's a mixture of truth and lies, it makes sense logically. It's a mixture of truth and lies. That is just as valuable as truth is. Which of those truths will you believe? This is up to you to decide, Butler-kun.
No. I'll trust Aunt Natty and Uncle Cross. I realize they're in some money trouble. But even so, I don't want to believe that they're the culprits. No, I can't believe it.
On this game board, where the red is steadily cornering Natsuki, how do you intend to let her escape?
I don't know. However, I seriously don't want to give up. Aunt Natsuki was just caught in a cowardly trap. Erika's reasoning has fallen for that trap completely. So whether it's intentional or she's being manipulated, Erika is aiding the true culprit. Erika has accused Aunt Natsuki of being the culprit, but even if everyone believes that, in fact, for that very reason, I want to be the one person who trusts Aunt Natsuki. If everyone believes it's her, will that become the truth? If everyone accepts a lie, will that become the truth? Must an honest person be dragged up to the guillotine, all alone, and be taunted by lies? I don't like it. If no one else will believe in Aunt Natsuki, then I will. The real truth isn't something that's determined when everyone accepts it. It's something you find after thoroughly investigating both possibilities. So this trial is a downright lie. This trial exists for no reason other than to set Aunt Natsuki up as the culprit.
Beato is doing all she can to help
To plead
plead
case.
Natsuki. Why did you go so fast, Deki? You cannot read that fast. Go back, I say.
You read it.
Back to the next page. Beato is doing all she can to plead Natsuki's case, right?
Wrong. Beato is trying to refute Erika's argument. She's just defending. You can't fight in this trial by simply resisting all of your opponent's claims. This is why Beato always cornered me in the past. She isn't going to beat Erika by finding flaws in her reasoning. She has to find a different truth and show Lambda Delta, the commander of this game, that her truth is more correct than Erika's.
Can anyone create a truth where Natsuki isn't the culprit without violating the red truth that Lady Barncastle has shown?
I don't know. But as long as I don't believe that Aunt Natsuki is the culprit, there's got to be a different truth.
You're the one who's going to find it, Battler.
It's even okay if the culprit for the crime was a witch. That's better than having Aunt Natsuki be framed by an incorrect truth.
So, no matter how much red truth you are shown, you won't believe that Natsuki is the culprit, correct?
Yeah. For all things, there should always be some people who believe and some who don't. No matter how much evidence is stacked up against her, someone has to believe that she's innocent. There must be several truths in the world that can't be proven with evidence. I don't ever want to accept that something's true just because everyone says it is. How can you be sure that there's nothing on the backside of the moon if you've never seen it? Is there some reason that you have to believe it? Until you see the back of the moon with your own eyes, you can deny neither the possibility that nothing's there at all, nor the possibility that there's a thriving culture of space bunnies. You should never assume something is the truth until you actually check it. This court is a malicious thing, trying to force a single interpretation on a truth that cannot be checked. I believed there was a civilization on the backside of the moon, but that was in elementary school and I was made fun of and laughed at. So I thought it was embarrassing to think that a civilization lived on the moon, and I threw away that belief. I'd been told by a book my mum read me that rabbits lived on the backside of the moon, so I believed that for a long, long time. But when everyone said it was wrong, I abandoned that truth without even trying to check it. Even without evidence, I abandoned the truth I believed in. And now everyone is starting to believe that Aunt Natsuki is the culprit, even though no decisive evidence has been shown. Even without evidence, Erika's words sound reasonable. So they're probably the truth? Is that why you're throwing away your belief that Aunt Natsuki is innocent, despite a lack of proof? If no one else will believe, then I will. I believe the real truth only appears if you look with both eyes, one denying and one affirming. No matter how much she tries to make us believe that Aunt Natsuki is the culprit, I believe she isn't. I won't abandon that belief.
Understood. Then I will give you just a single red truth. I will give this single bit of power to you now that you possess the will to fight in the truest sense.
Power?
By the name of the finite witch Vadilia. No, as the former witch Beatrice, I will grant you this red truth. Ushiromi or Natsuki is not the culprit.
A plea bargain. If you acknowledge that Kraus is the culprit, Erika will suspend her pursuit of Natsuki. From then on, the investigation will proceed, assuming that Kraus, whose location is unknown, is the culprit.
Will you do, Beato? At this rate, Natsuki's in serious trouble, right? Will you accept the plea bargain? If you were willing to abandon this Ushiromiya family honor thing, Burn will be kind enough to let you get off with the draw, okay?
Kraus is currently missing, and it's unknown whether he's alive or dead. Like Kinzo, he's no different than a cat in a box that has disappeared into the midst of the island. A cat inside a box is unfixed, and no interpretation of it can be denied. It is the root of endless interpretations, the true source of the endless witch's power. In other words, no matter how much Bernkastel claims that Kraus is the culprit, she can't make that sole truth, or that the sole truth. In other words, the Kraus culprit theory and the witch theory can be in almost perfect balance. It would mean making the game a draw. This was a cajolery, offering her a second chance if she abandons the honor of the family she swore to protect, and consents to a fragment that stomps all over that honor. There's no room for false confidence. For Beato, to lose is to die. In this game, she should always choose a draw unless she has an overwhelming advantage.
I won't allow you to treat my husband like the culprit. My husband is the successor to the Ushiromiya family headship, the only person who will inherit the glory of the Ushiromiya family. I will never let you treat him like a criminal. Are you sure, Natsuki? If you refuse to suspect Kraus, then you'll be the only one left. Alibis have been proven for everyone else. In other words, Hempel's raven. Even without any evidence, it will be determined that you are the culprit. And if I'm the only one left, what then? She just told you. I am Ushiromiya Natsuki. I will not run or hide. I am innocent. I am the representative of the noble head with the one-winged eagle engraved into my heart. If you wish to insult me, go ahead. If you wish to ridicule me, do as you please. No one can damage my honor with a mixture of truth and lies.
With a dignified voice,
It was very dignified.
Natsuki stated her case openly before the witches above her. However, this response of hers might have been exactly what Bernkastel had intended.
Natsuki refuses the deal. And you, Beato? You understand, right? The instant Natsuki is specified as the culprit, Lambda will make her verdict. As soon as that happens, the illusion of the witch will be denied, and you'll disappear into the mist. Do you plan to let Natsuki's foolish bragging drag you down to the depths of hell?
Nietzsche, you fought well. This is our chance. Convince Natsuki and try to work out a compromise.
Both Lady Lambda Delta and Lady Bernkastel have boredom, not you as their true enemy. They probably want to have this game repeat and play some more. If they see that you're willing to make a concession, they will most likely accept it gladly and move on to the next game.
If we move on to the next game, then what will happen to the Natsuki of this game? The Natsuki of this fragment?
Now isn't the time to be worrying about that, right? Natsuki's just a piece. Even if she gets removed from this game, she'll show up again in the next one.
But that doesn't apply to you, milady. I believe you know that Lady Bernkastel plans for this game. It's a more realistic goal to make use of that and aim for victory in the next game instead. Accepting Lady Bernkastel's deal might be our one and only good option right now.
Throw away that useless pride of yours.
Neither Kasparov nor Deep Blue won every game. The person that wins more games wins in the end, right? If a witch gets too attached to a single match, a single life, a single piece, that witch dies. My apologies, but I cannot do that. I know the strength of a man who believed even though everyone said he was wrong, and I know the suffering he went through when he was forced to abandon that belief. I will not abandon Natsuki. Why? Because if everyone else suspects Natsuki, then someone has to believe in her. That's Butler. Because truth can only be found in the gap between those who doubt and those who believe. I will not abandon her. Even if everyone believes that Natsuki is the culprit, I will still claim that I, the witch, am the culprit. If I can't even make that claim, my existence isn't worth anything. I cannot lose. The truth isn't something anyone gets to deny. Only when you doubt and abandon it yourself does it disappear.
Is that your answer, Beato?
Yes, of course, I refuse. Ushiomiya Cross is not the culprit.
Ushiomiya Cross is not the culprit.
Fool. I won't let you take that back, okay? Here's what you get for being a quick-tempered moron. By the name of Burnkastel, Witch of Miracles, I speak with the red truth. Ushiomiya Cross is not the culprit, and he was killed long ago, shortly after you heard his voice over the phone. Get it?
No, dear.
Burnkastel's cruel and ruthless red blade gouged Natsuki. It was totally merciless. Natsuki had been crushed with uncertainty, not knowing whether Kraus was alive or dead, but she had still been capable of believing that he was alive. And now, that hope, that expectation, had been crushed, without any chance of a miracle. She had thrown herself into this trap out of concern for her husband's safety. She had now lost her daughter and husband, and everything she had gained since marrying into the Ushiremiya family. No, even after all this, one thing still remains. If her husband has been lost, then right now she is the last person who can protect the honor of the Ushiremiya family. She still couldn't let it end here. Even wrapped up in so much sadness, Natsuki would do all she could to protect that honor. With this final bit of strength.
Nope, it's all over. It's been determined with the red truth that none of the remaining people in the dining hall have left that room until 1 a.m. In other words, alibis have already been proven for everyone except Natsuki. Everyone in the mansion besides Natsuki has an alibi. What's happening?
Jump scares.
That's coming?
No,
We're
I'm gonna
recording.
finish.
Well done, Erica Burnkastel. You've fully proven that the crime was impossible for everyone except Ushiremiya and Natsuki. Why don't I start reading aloud from the verdict? At midnight on October 4th, 1986, the defendant, Ushiremiya Natsuki, left before the others while pretending to return to her room to sleep, and murdered George, Jessica, Maria, Rosa, and Genji one after another during the 1 hour period before 1 a.m.
Let me tack something on. Due to circumstantial evidence, include the murder of Kraus.
Yeah, that's right. In this situation, it's unthinkable that anyone except Natsuki could kill Kraus. A revision to that verdict. During the hour before 1 a.m., Kraus, George, Jessica, Maria, Rosa, and Genji were killed one after another. It's only possible for any of these murders to have taken place between midnight and 1 a.m. The only person without an alibi during this time was Ushiremiya Natsuki. From this point forward, the defendant will be treated as the true culprit. Furthermore, because it has been fully proven that the crime was possible for humans, Beatrice, Endless Witch, the Court of Illusions hereby denies your existence. You'll be given a chance to plead your case, but can you prove an alibi for Natsuki? Or can you prove that it was possible for someone other than Natsuki? If you can do that, Natsuki will stop it being one shade short of absolute guilty, and the denial of your existence will be put on hold for this game.
If Natsuki had an alibi, Beato would have shown it long ago. In fact, wasn't the whole point of that trap to make her lose her alibi?
Even if her alibi is not proven, I will believe in Natsuki's innocence, no matter how much you try to pin your fake truth on her. I am the true culprit. Natsuki is innocent, even without any proof. The truth is only known by the Master of the Night on the island. The truth is only known by the Master of the Night on this island. What does that even mean? The truth is known only by the Master of the Night on this island, Beatrice the Golden. I am Ushinomiya Natsuki. Now that I have lost my husband, now that my husband has passed away, I am the head of the Ushinomiya family. Just given myself a pay rise. My determination will not bend no matter how you try and humiliate me. Why, you ask? It is because Father gave me permission to engrave the family crest on the one-winged eagle into my heart. Did he really?
There you go.
He did?
Just keep going.
Ah, how do you intend to disprove the existence of this honor with your evidence and your alibis? You cannot! The Ushinomiya family crest engraved into my heart is immortal!
Now that Natsuki and Beatrice had practically been placed onto the guillotine, they cried out with all the strength of their determination. However, that did nothing but bring a cold smile to Lambda Delta's face. Erika had constructed a truth that Lambda Delta could accept, and no one could construct a more convincing truth to deny Erika's. In that case, the most convincing truth would swallow up everything else, and become the one and only truth, even if it happened to be different from the real truth. The truth of those in the past is swallowed up by the truth of those in the future. This can happen even for a mixture of truth and lies, as long as everyone acknowledges it's true.
Sheesh, stop howling already. I like it best when witches sob and beg for their lives when they're about to be burned at the stake. When they try and bluff like you do, it's such a killjoy. In that case, I guess I'll send you one final gift. A red truth to smash that bluff wide open.
What do you mean? Stop it, Lady Berncastle. Hasn't it already been overwritten with the truth you wished for? The truth and Natsuki should be able to coexist. Please don't defile it. Please.
Natsuki, when did Kinzo ever say it was okay for you to engrave the one-winged eagle into your heart? Those were just the words of the Kinzo from your delusions, weren't they? You know, the real Kinzo. Not once in his entire life did he ever trust you from the bottom of his heart. And not once did he ever consider letting you bear the family crest.
Ooh, burn.
When that heartless announcement was made, Kinzo stood up.
Natsuki! You need not listen to this. No one can defile the crest engraved in your heart. That is yours alone. Don't let your pride as the final family head be forgotten forever. Natsuki!
Just shut up and disappear, you miserable delusion of Natsuki's.
No! You cannot erase me! You cannot erase my soul! Not as long as the crest is engraved into Natsuki's heart.
That's enough, you lying illusion. The real Kinzo wouldn't say that. Disappear, you, the illusion of Kinzo inside Natsuki's mind, beautified by Natsuki to suit her own purposes.
God! Natsuki! God! something.
No, he got burned again.
Go back. What did he say?
A bright red flash of lightning smashed Kinzo over and over again as he screamed. Then he crumpled like a doll and sat back down in his chair as though nothing had happened. The fierce emotion had left Kinzo's face. He had truly become like a wax model, and so he would never again share kind words with Natsuki. That's right, the true Kinzo never once trusted Natsuki during his entire life. The true Kinzo never once considered allowing Natsuki to bear the one-winged eagle. Because, of course, Kinzo had already vanished before the start of the game. The Kinzo that appears in this game is nothing more than Natsuki's delusion. Every part of this Kinzo who believed in Natsuki and entrusted her with protecting the family honor was a phantom created by Natsuki.
Pitiful woman, you will now face the truth that you never gained Ushiremiya Kinzo's trust as long as he lived.
Natsuki, don't cry. Kinzo entrusted the Ushiremiya family to you, right?
No, he didn't. Not only did he not entrust her with that, he never even said hello, or met her gaze even once. Natsuki's cry was a mixture of sadness and many other emotions, and it echoed throughout the cathedral. Natsuki could no longer stop her tears. Some last, faint element that had cheered her up until today, that had allowed her to endure as an Ushiremiya, as the wife of the head's representative, and as the final family head, had been torn to bits. Natsuki no longer had anything left. Natsuki could no longer allow herself to even call herself an Ushiremiya. Those difficult days, those painful days, those days where she still gave everything she could for the family she'd married into despite it all. Very few happy days among these. All of these flitted through her mind, one after another, and disappeared. All of those once beautiful memories were then crushed by Bancastell's red truth, smashed to bits and scattered, plunged deep into her hands, and smeared red with mournful blood. It was the red of sadness and truth.
That is all. Just because the crime exists as it does.
Oh, whoops.
That is all. Just because the crime exists as it does. This level of reasoning is possible for Furuto Erika. What do you think, everyone?
Lambda Delta clapped. Then a bit later, Bernkastel also clapped, looking pleased. The expressionless wax figure-like audience followed suit, and the unshakable verdict was welcomed with a great applause. And so, the truth of this tale was decided. I'm not sure if that's a chapter. I'll just go for a little bit. Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in the parlor. And with one exception, it has been shown that none of them have committed murder. And the culprit is among these people. Whoa, whoa. In that case, it's conclusive, isn't it?
Unless the culprit is a witch who committed murder with magic, that is. It was you? You killed George, killed my husband? Why? Why? I didn't kill anyone. I didn't.
In a panic, and with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Aunt Natsuki denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed back her long hair, and pointed at Aunt Natsuki and said it one more time.
You're the culprit, Ushiremiya Natsuki-san.
Red-faced and tear-streaked, Ava walked up to Natsuki and grabbed her by the collar. Then wordlessly, she slapped Natsuki's cheek. Natsuki, who had never been slapped in her life, was shocked by the taste of iron which she was feeling for the first time. It turned into a scuffle between Ava and Natsuki. Battler immediately tried to stop them, but Ava planted a sharp knee into Battler's gut and he doubled over.
Give them back! Give back George and my husband! Why did you kill them? You murderer! Murderer!
Sobbing, Ava kicked Natsuki, who had fallen to the ground over and over. Battler tried once more to cut in and stop them, but he was brushed aside. And after that, no one tried to stop them. Repeating her son and husband's names over and over, Ava kicked Natsuki, and kicked her. Then she started grabbing whatever her eyes fell upon and throwing it. Natsuki was hit with a steaming teacup and a can of black tea. His tea leaves fell out all over her. She was kicked, her hair pulled and dragged up, and her cheek slapped so many times that it started to swell.
And the men just watched.
I was struck. No one tried to stop it. It wasn't because they were worried about Ava kicking them too. It was because they thought it was an appropriate act of retribution for a person who had lost her beloved son and husband. A proper retribution. A proper truth. Everyone in the parlor accepted that Natsuki was the culprit. They accepted that the truth Erika had claimed. So it became a proper truth, and Natsuki was designated as the proper culprit. She had already lost the husband and daughter who might have protected her, and even Kinzo, who should have given her a final bit of strength, had already vanished like a bubble in the oceans of delusions. No longer would anyone protect her. No longer would anyone believe her. So she was now the true culprit. Ava's shoulders heaved with her heavy breathing. Apparently, her anger still hadn't abated. Erika patted her shoulder and made Ava take a step back. Of course, this wasn't to protect Natsuki from violence. It was to further humiliate Natsuki, now that she had been branded as the culprit.
Natsuki, son, I've solved 2 of the 3 riddles. The who done it, and the how done it. The final riddle, the why done it, must always be confessed by the culprit herself. Please follow the rules of the mystery genre and confess.
The why done it refers to the motive.
If this was a third-rate mystery, you would let out a high-pitched laugh about now, confess to the crime, and start yelling the story of her sad past. Don't tell me you intend to make me explain that part as well.
I am not the culprit! Someone believe me! I just had my husband taken hostage, was threatened, and fell into a trap.
Natsuki, with her hair a mess and her face red and tear-streaked, protested to everyone, but no one met her gaze, because it had already been resolved that Natsuki was the culprit. Because Lambda Delta had acknowledged that the culprit of the tale was Natsuki and had woven it that way, none of the pieces would pay any heed to the culprit's words.
Natsuki isn't the culprit. I am the Golden Witch, Beatrice. I am the one who commands Rikenjima's night and who has reigned since long before the time you were all still scared of the dark. Why can't you just call it my sin? Why must you suspect Natsuki? Acknowledge me. I committed all the crimes. There's no way a human is the culprit.
The illusion of the witch had already been crushed, and Beato's voice didn't reach anyone. The verdict had already been made. Everything had been decided.
No one can hear you. You're a phantom, a mere illusion. Go back to being a simple portrait. You're a faint phantom of a witch, born when Kinzo shared his illusion with his relatives. That is the truth chosen by this world. So, great Lady Lambda Delta, now's the time for you to bury this ridiculous and foolish illusion that this witch claims is the truth.
Goodbye, Beatrice. I made you a witch expecting that you'd either become my friend or help distract me from my boredom. And you've answered to my expectations. The second one, that is.
I am a witch, even if Lady Lambda Delta doesn't acknowledge it. I'm a witch.
Oh, sure, but you wouldn't even be capable of believing that if I hadn't become your guardian in the first fourth place. Yeah, this is game over for you. You'll be buried in accordance with the rules of your game board. What happens to the losers in your game again?
Beato has already shown that clearly in previous game. You get made into a mound of living flesh before being tossed into Goat's dinner party and getting chewed to bits. Now there's a fitting end for you, Beatrice. And I did come all the way here just to hear that death cries of one as haughty as you. One by one, a massive number of goat attendants slipped out from the shadows of the pillars and began to fill the cathedral. The goats paid no attention to Natsuki, who was seated in the center, but the crowd completely enveloped her. From Beato's point of view, up on the balcony, it probably looked like a huge boiling pot of goats.
That's right. The contract has been like this since the beginning.
Yep, our contract said that whenever you stopped entertaining me, you would relieve me of my burden with your life. Come, strip the title of witch from this woman and throw her into a pot of goats.
Suddenly, there were goats standing right behind Beato. They lifted her up roughly. Let me hear some nice screams. You're the wine I've been fermenting all this time.
Then perhaps refusing your request will be my final strike back at you.
Yeah, I made her say it. The best screams always come from a girl who's just said some tired line like that. Fall, Beatrice. The goats carrying Beato no longer viewed her as their master. After holding her above the pod of clambering goats, which were snorting heavily in anticipation, they threw Beato's slender body into the air. All at once, the squirming goats faced the heavens and raised their arms. It was almost as though they would be able to forget their pain for just a short while by devouring her flesh. As she flew through the air, Beato tried to smile boldly, but it was so stiff that it seemed even more pathetic, much to Berg Castell's amusement. When Beato fell into the pot, the goats caught her. Of course, they didn't do it gently. The arms of countless goats pulled at her flesh to keep it for themselves. They tried to tear her to bits. It didn't have to be flesh. Hair, fingernails, shoes, even bits of her dress worked just fine.
Oh, lovely.
The mouths of those goats were the gateway into hell. However, Beato was too big to enter into that gateway, so they had to chew and tear her into bits small enough to fit into it. Beato let out a bold laugh. She laughed from inside the pot of goats. However, her expression was very different from the one she wanted. It was an expression, not of a witch, but of a single human yelling in her death throes. Then the sea of goats parted. Delanor leapt forward, slicing all the goats in her path with a single flash of her longsword. It was a clean slice, like cutting through the butter. The goats were surprised by Delanor's sudden appearance and stepped back. In the center, Beatrice cowered in tatters, sobbing.
What's this supposed to be, Delanor, Inquisitor of Heresy?
My apologies, but I have something to say. There is someone who has an objection to this ruling. His name is Ushiromiya Butler.
All of the goats stared at Butler.
What is unsatisfactory about the court's ruling? Do you possess any new evidence or truth sufficient to request a retrial?
Gah. I get it. Delanor is offering me a helping hand. If she hadn't jumped in here, it'd all be over. And now I finally understand how I'm supposed to fight. But because I understand how, I am unable to fight right now. After all, I can't win by simply countering Erika's truth. If I want to deny her truth, I'll need to present a different one. And I still don't have a clue what that truth is.
There is nothing that is not healed with time, and there is no truth that cannot be reached if you spend enough time searching. However, all trials have a limited time in which the truth must be decided. Therefore, a truth that cannot be reached within that limited time cannot become truth.
Yeah, I know that.
By now, everyone is certain that Aunt Natsuki is the culprit. It might be too late now, even for the real truth. Aunt Ava's violence will probably go unstopped, and no one is even thinking about protecting Aunt Natsuki. It's no longer a situation where we can say, oh, the truth will eventually be found. And in this world, the time remaining to expose the truth is very short. It's already midnight at the game's end. The police won't come. The truth won't be revealed. Only the truth, decided upon here and now, will remain. I slowly stood up, walked in front of Beato and faced Eleanor. I have no plan. I don't know the truth. However, if I don't jump in now, I won't get another chance to fight. The red used by Erika's group is mercilessly strict. I seriously doubt that I can put together a truth where Aunt Natsuki isn't the culprit without violating that red.
Why the uncertain face? How pathetic.
Damn it!
Butler.
I'll be the one to kill you. I want to keep that promise. And yet, right now, I don't have any plan at all.
That's okay. In this world, there is no truth. The truth is made later on and overrides what comes before it. Real truth doesn't exist anywhere.
Now this is a splendid scenario, Eleanor. It just wouldn't be interesting unless a knight appears before the princess's execution. And there's nothing better than watching heads roll before your very eyes. Erase the old piece and the unneeded player all in one go.
As you wish, glory be to the great Lady Berncastel. I, the head inquisitor of heresy, Eleanor A. Knox, step forward, Ushiromiya Battler.
Damn it, I've got nothing more to lose. If you want to see me struggle, I'll show you. The only reason Erika's theory is so strong is because of those seals. She was given red so quickly just because Lambda Delta easily bought the alibis created by those seals. But the seals aren't red truth. Just sticking paper in a door crack is far from perfect. There's no way something like that can prove anything with certainty.
Begin, Battler. Ready to let those goats turn you into a pile of meat along with your beloved Beatrice?
Oh, and I'll mix the leftovers from your precious sister into that pile. Wouldn't that make for a wonderful stack of meat? Then we can wrap it up in a dumpling, steam it, and maybe add some soy sauce.
No, the best way would be to fry them in a pan with some eggs and ketchup.
No, yes, you too.
I can't, I've got reflux. It hurts.
Damn it! Can't we doubt the reliability of those seals of Erika's? Something like wedging a paper in a door can't create a perfect alibi. It might be that someone noticed by chance and happened to put it back in the same place. The blade of my Bluetooth should have slashed diagonally through Delanor's chest. However, Delanor's expression didn't budge in the slightest, and there wasn't a single wound on her chest.
I was wondering what you'd throw out there, but this is ridiculous. Allow me to explain. This is what I used to seal the doors with. Did you think this was paper, Battler-san?
Erika once again held up the thing that looked like brown paper.
This is packing tape, and its adhesive power is extremely strong. I used scissors to make it easier to tear. Furthermore, I wrote my signature, which cannot be reproduced, in 3 places, according to the tear point across the edge, and across the edge between the door and the tape, and across the edge between the tape and the door frame. Therefore, it's impossible to tear it off without leaving a mark, and it's impossible to reattach too.
Permission to unsheath the red key.
Granted.
I don't know who that is.
Due to the above, the seals are guaranteed to be perfect. Miss Erika's seals were not broken by anyone, and deception is impossible.
I'll acknowledge Erika's seals. However, Aunt Ava's seal on Genji-san's room should be different.
Ava's seal was of the same type as Miss Erika's. She was, of course, the one to teach her that. This is because that method of sealing was one that Miss Erica and Ava conceived of together after dinner.
Erica says something about a scientific investigation and fished through the chemicals in Grandfather's room, right? There might have been some kind of solvent in there. If you use that, you might be able to tear off the packing tape without leaving fingernail marks.
Please allow me to speak. It is impossible to tear off any of the seals by any method without leaving marks.
Please allow me to speak. There were no suspicious marks on any of the seals.
Therefore, it's been proven that nothing was done to any of the seals. Repeat it. Yes, gladly. All of Erica and Ava's seals were not tampered with in any way that hindered their ability to act as seals, such as being scraped off.
Damn it. Damn you using packing tape that leaves marks all over the place. Delanora isn't my only enemy. There's also her subordinates, Gertrude and Cornelia, and also Erica and her master Berncastel, and even Lambda Delta, the one who hijacked Beato's game. Everyone in this cathedral is an enemy. That fierce rush of red immediately repelled my feeble truth. It's obvious why. I don't have any alternate truth. Even at this final stage, I have nothing.
Were the seals all that you had to discuss? You promised to give it everything you've got.
If I only knew a truth that could prove Aunt Nussie's innocence. If I could only make a theory that weaves its way through Erica's red. Damn it, I don't know anything.
But Virgilia told him that she didn't do it. Do you have any chance of winning?
I left it at home. Mind if I go back and get it?
I have already lost. I am prepared for my fate.
I promised that I'd kill you, so I won't let anyone else do it. I'll definitely keep that promise.
Liar. I'll never trust your promises again.
Huh? When did I ever make a promise to you, and what was the lie?
After hearing you say that, hell might not be so bad. Kill us, Lady Pencastle, Lambda Delta.
Beato let out a shrill cry, overcome with laughter. It was a broken laugh, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Battler's words would no longer reach her ears. She kept on laughing insanely, like a broken record.
Is it over, pitiful? I am truly disappointed, Ushiromiya Battler. Kill me, Dylan, or slash me in half with that red longsword of yours.
Some sounds. Let's assume that there exists some method X that can lead someone to the second floor of the guest house without passing through the lounge. Erica claims that the windows and such were sealed, but she can't prove that she sealed all possible means of entry. There's a possibility that Erica was unable to seal entrance X because she couldn't find it. What's that?
What do you mean? Ah, yes. Nox is third. It is forbidden for hidden passages to exist. As the detective, Miss Erica sealed all entrances. Passages that the detective cannot find are hidden passages. Therefore, there are no entrances that Miss Erica cannot find.
I present the possibility that Erica's lookout in the lounge wasn't perfect. During the 2 hours Erica spent there, she really observed everything without looking away for a second. It might be possible for someone to have passed through the lounge during a small gap without at least Erica seeing them.
Please allow me to speak. Lady Erica's lookout in the lounge was perfect. There were no small gaps or carelessness, or times when she looked away for even a second.
Please allow me to speak. Therefore, during their entire meeting in the lounge room, only Rosa went up to the second floor.
Was that really Aunt Rosa herself? There's a possibility that someone disguised themselves as Aunt Rosa. Or maybe she was actually holding a large suitcase with someone hiding inside it.
Nox's 10th. It is forbidden for a character to disguise themselves as another without any clues. There have been no hints suggesting that someone had disguised themselves as Rosa. Furthermore, Erica has confirmed that she wasn't carrying any luggage large enough to hide a human in.
Aunt Natsuki was being threatened by someone. The uninvited unknown guest X is the true culprit. How can you be sure that we're the only ones on this island? The true culprit is someone else.
Nox is first. It is forbidden for the culprit to be anyone not mentioned in the early part of the story. Could be the boatman.
Yeah, could be the boatman.
Could be the boatman.
Maybe they were killed with poison in a remote murder. With a strange drug that can make a cut appear in someone's neck when they die. That type of murder has a delayed effect, so even with an alibi...
Nox is fourth. It is forbidden for unknown drugs or hard to understand scientific devices to be used. Oh, he's fainting.
There's a chance that there existed a murder device X in the cousin room and Genji-san's waiting room that made a remote murder possible. It has some secret mechanism and still hasn't been discovered and...
Nox is 8th. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented.
Anyway, there exists a culprit other than Natsuki. If you want to deny that, try and repeat it in red that none of the appearing characters were the culprit.
Nox is 6th. It is forbidden for accident or intuition to be employed as a detective technique.
You say that everyone except Aunt Natsuki has an alibi? You're forgetting one person. Who's going to prove that Erica herself is an alibi?
Nox is 7th. It is forbidden for the detective to be the culprit. Does that just mean that he's... Oh, well, he can't because he wasn't playing in the game.
What?
I was going to say he could just take back the title of detective. Because he is supposed to be... He's the one who's supposed to be the detective.
Erica's detective now.
Yeah. Move over, Bella. You've been replaced.
Unless she's caught red-handed, you should never be able to deny the possibility that Aunt Natsuki is innocent. Can you even deny future possibilities? Like if a piece of evidence X that Erica hasn't discovered proves that Natsuki's innocence?
Nox is 8th. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented.
This tale is filled with malicious lies. The tale itself has become a trap to catch a Natsuki. The tale should be constructed only from impartial truths.
Nox is 9th. It is permitted for observers to let their own conclusions and explanations be heard.
I was the culprit, so maybe I gave George Aniki and the others a slow-acting poison to make them die after midnight, then silently slit their throats when I returned at 3 a.m. I could have done it so quietly that Erica wouldn't hear.
Nox is 8th. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented.
Everyone committed suicide, so there is no culprit.
Please allow me to speak. All victims' deaths were homicides.
Erica didn't personally examine the corpses, right? It should be possible for people who aren't the detective to make a mistake when examining corpses.
Please allow me to speak. No, that no examination of the corpses could have been mistaken.
Then maybe there were body double corpses. They prepared corpses beforehand that closely resembled the victims.
Know that no corpses exist except those of characters who have appeared in the story.
Then how can you claim that Uncle Kraus is dead without his corpse? Doesn't that violate Nox's something or whatever?
Know that the red truth is simply truth and there is no need to provide evidence or proof.
What the...
Damn it.
In the face of these insane arguments, any attempts to overturn the truth where Aunt Natsuki is treated as the culprit are completely meaningless.
Do you think this is still the same chapter?
Each time I brandished my desperate blue truths, Delnor and the others' red truths knocked me down to the floor. It was getting hard to even stand back up again. Does that mean my body is telling me that I'm about to surrender? To the truth where Aunt Natsuki is the culprit? Their red truth is getting more and more perfect. Each time I can think I can slip through a chink in their armor, Delnor smacks me down with the red longsword of Nox. Beato.
That's enough, battler. Now, the endless torture that torments me, no, us, will finally end. Let us fall together into the depths.
Gah. I don't want to see Beato like this. Her Majesty as the ruler of the Golden Land, her enthusiasm as my rival, are completely gone. She's just a pitiful woman who's been trampled over and lost all hope, with tears streaming down her face and a tragic smile that I can't bear to look at.
Does your truth no longer exist?
No, I have one last thing.
And that is a different truth, where Natsuki isn't the culprit?
That's not it. All I can do is prove that Aunt Natsuki isn't the culprit. After that, I can't show what the real truth is at all. But even so, maybe at least you'll be saved that way.
Why?
I can show without a doubt that Aunt Natsuki isn't the culprit. However, I cannot show a different truth. If Erika's truth is dispersed, the crime will return to darkness, and there might still be room for you to exist.
Yeah, if you can do it. But if you can't, show a new truth. Well, if you can't show a new truth, that means you're incompetent and useless as a player. I'll have you vanish from this game board for all eternity.
At this point, the Game Master is Lambda Delta, and she is there too. This probably doesn't mean losing a single game, but being banished from this game for all eternity for losing. From what the witches have said in the past, I can faintly imagine the place pieces are sent when they're banished. It's known as the Depths of Oblivion, an eternal darkness that lies on the far side of an eternal oblivion, and where there is no concept of life or death. I'm going to disappear, aren't I? However, Beato will remain. As long as Beato remains, no matter how suspicious Aunt Natsuki is, there will always remain space for the witch to be the culprit. In other words, room for Aunt Natsuki to not be the culprit. As long as that space exists, someone will eventually expose the truth. It doesn't have to be me. Anyway, eventually someone will smash this fake truth to pieces. I understood that the time had come to abandon myself for the sake of this other person who would eventually appear, for the sake of the real truth. Well, it looks like I'll have to break my promise to kill you after all.
Don't leave me as the only one alive. I'll disappear with you. Let that be your final tribute to me. I beg you, if you just do this one thing, I don't need anything else. Have you used up everything you have? I really am disappointed in you, Ushiromiya Butler.
Quickly, perform his requiem. That way I'll have an open field in which to expose Natsuki-san's sin.
These guys really are interesting. Beatrice, Ushiromiya Butler.
But I've gotten tired of this. You aren't needed in our game. Do it, Dilnor.
This is the end. If you still have one last bit of power, let me see you muster it now in your last moments.
It's small, but it's a sparkling red truth. The last trump card Virgilia gave me. Erika, this takes your theory back to square one. If you can, why not go ahead?
Take this!
Shiremi and Natsuki is not the culprit. The red truth is simply truth with no evidence or proof needed. This will make Dillinor stagger. Even if that's all it does, it's the first and last strike I can make.
Nox's second. It is forbidden for supernatural agencies to be employed as a detective technique.
Huh? My red truth was blown away by Dilinor's red longsword.
In this court, if anyone other than witches is going to speak the red truth, they'll have to construct an appropriate proof for it. Erica has been following this procedure, right?
True, Erica hadn't used the red truth herself, even once so far. She always had Bernkastel, a witch, repeat her statements.
Your red truth isn't something you obtain for yourself. It's a supernatural truth given by a paranormal being. In other words, it isn't reasoning. It's no better than a random thought.
In that case, if I have Virgilia say the same red truth, where is Virgilia?
If you are to present that red truth, you must construct an appropriate argument. Can you do that?
No, it's impossible. I just have the truth that Aunt Natsuki isn't the culprit, without any basis or evidence.
See, real truth is a very fragile thing. Does real truth exist? And is it necessary? Even without it, the tale will continue on. Battler. Come on, Battler. Prove the red you have shown. If you cannot, this is goodbye.
Then, goodbye. Sorry, Beato.
Don't say that. Thanks for sticking around with me. It was such a blood-stained tale, but it was fun. The trial is now finished. Finished. Death. Die.
Die the death. Sentenced to death. The great equalizer is the death. With that, the trial for the fifth game ended. The detective, Furudo Erika, accused the culprit, Ushiremi Natsuki. There are 3 riddles that the detective must explain. The first is the whodunit. Who is the culprit? As previously stated, it is Ushiremi Natsuki. The second is the howdunit. How did they carry out the crime? During the hour between midnight and on October 4th, 1986, and 1 the next day, Ushiremi Natsuki went to the cousin room on the second floor of the guest house and the servant waiting room on the first floor of the mansion. There she carried out the murders. It is only possible for the crime to have taken place during that hour, and for that 1 hour, alibis have been proven for all characters except Natsuki. From the sky, a massive red longsword, even greater in size than the one Dillinor had, came crashing down like a thunderbolt, piercing through Battler's heart and pinning him in place where he stood, or while he still stood. In that instant, Beatrice became a golden splash and faded away, and her former minions disappeared as well. As the heartless witches looked down at the cathedral centre laughing coldly, all that remained was Battler with the red longsword sticking through him and Dillinor.
Rest in peace, Ushiremiya Battler. What a shame. I thought you were a more capable person than this.
Battler blew bubbles of blood. Battler blew bubbles of blood. It's like how many bees in there? Closed his eyes slowly and died.
Oh, Battler.
Dillinor stared on in silence, then turned on her heels when she saw his life leave him. After that, all that remained was the corpse of this sorrowful man, pierced by the sword that acted as a massive red grave marker, and lit by the faint glow let in from the cathedral's skylight. And then there's the third riddle the detective must uncover. The final riddle. The why done it. Why did they commit the crime? The motive. In third-rate mysteries, there's no need to uncover this. After all, even if you don't expose the motive, the culprit will just confess it when it all's said and done. However, Furudo Erika was first-rate, so she would expose even this.